Welcome back. Episode 4. Come on, let's go. You're making progress. I like that. Well done. Let's talk guides though for a quick second. Navigating the real estate market alone can be like trying to assemble IKEA furniture without instructions. You can YouTube it, but results may vary. That's where your real estate agent comes in. Let's talk about how to find the right one for you to guide you through this adventure.
You are now listening to Search to Sold with Matthew M.G. Garcia.
Not all agents are built equal. Here's how to spot the right one. Let's start here. Why do you need a real estate agent? Well, a real estate agent is more than just a tour guide or a door opener for homes. They're going to be your advocate. They're going to be your negotiator. They're going to be your advisor. They help you navigate the complexities of contracts, inspections, and closing processes, ensuring that your interests are protected every step of the way. Qualities to look for. When you're choosing an agent, consider the following. Expertise over tenure. Look for an agent who's deeply prepared, has a great local knowledge base, and is strategic. Not just someone who's been around forever. A qualified agent should bring clarity, structure, and an approach tailored to your goals, not just a list of past sales. You know, I've talked to some of these people who went with the big guys, who went with the big names, and they didn't get treated as a priority. Maybe they were too popular. Maybe they had too much work on their plate. I don't know. Just having the reputation alone doesn't always equate to excellent service. And these are the other features I want you to look into. Communication. They should be responsive and they should keep you informed. So pay attention to how they're responding to you as you're trying to book your initial meetings or consultations with them. They should, like I said, have a deep knowledge and understanding of the local market. And why that's so important is because you want an agent to explain to you how these houses are priced, and so that you know how to go in with an effective offer. And further than that, my clients, I train them on the strategies that the sellers use to price the house to heighten the IQ of my buyer clients, so they know the strategy that the seller went in and how they price the home, so they know what's going to be a competitive offer and what's not going to be a competitive offer. Compatibility, that's crucial. Yeah, compatibility, chemistry. You have to feel comfortable and confident in their abilities. Well, where do you find agents? Referrals. Honestly, the best thing to do is if you don't know anyone, start asking around for people who may have had a good interaction with one. Some would say, you can go on some of these websites, these client-facing, consumer-facing websites to try to find an agent. I personally wouldn't start there just because they employ some practices that I personally don't agree with. So I'm always going to lean in towards the recommendation of someone that I know and that I trust first. Outside of that though, look for reviews, look for the ratings, look for the Yelp scores, look for the Google Business Profile scores. Here's the key though. Don't hesitate to interview multiple agents until you find the right fit. Use this podcast as a template, as a foundation for what you should be looking for in an agent, and see how they stack and see how they line up. Questions to ask potential agents. During the interview, here's a list of sample questions that you could bring to the table. I told you I was going to help you. I was going to get you organized. We're going to get you structured. We're going to get you going here. Okay, first up, how long have they been in real estate? I say that because many good agents weren't always agents, but may have been involved in real estate in another capacity. So you want to make sure that you're doing a thorough job and finding out more of what their background actually entails. How familiar are they with the neighborhood that you're interested in? What is their availability like? You can have a great agent, but if they got too many clients on their plate right now, you want to make sure that you're treated as a priority. So ask them what their current workload is and what availability they do have. And also if they can provide references from past clients, if they have past clients. I will tell you this. Some of the best agents that I've seen do amazing things when I was working with recruiting and onboarding and helping to build other agents' careers, they would get transactions and they would get multiple in that first year. And someone took a risk on them. They sold themselves well enough for someone to believe in them, probably because they had a system in place. So just keep that in mind, that a high sales volume is not the only criteria or metric that you should use to really understand the integrity and quality of a good agent. But these questions are just here to help gauge some experiences and some compatibility. So if you ask them all the same questions, you at least can stack up and see how they measure against one another. Understanding agency relationships. So in California, it's essential to understand agency relationships. A buyer agent represents your interest, while a seller agent represents the seller. Seems simple, right? Okay, well, here's the next tier. Dual agency. What is that? That's where one agent represents both parties, and it is legal for them to do this, but it must be disclosed and agreed upon in writing before moving forward. Ensure you understand who your agent represents and whether or not you are in a dual agency scenario, so you know how to avoid potential conflict of interests. I'll give you one more tidbit. When you go to open houses, if you start going to open houses before you have representation, be careful what you say to that listing agent, because they are not responsible for your best interest. They are responsible for their listing client's best interest. So if you're going to these open houses, be mindful about what you say and what you share with that agent. Your best case scenario is to already have representation, and that if you do need to have interactions or contact with the listing agent, you can refer them to follow up or speak in detail with the agent that represents you. In our next episode, we're going to jump into the fun part, touring homes without being emotionally manipulated by throw pillows and fake plants. Stay tuned.